Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining this stream. News summary from Moscow program. Today is 10th of September. Now it's 8 past 12, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm a bit later. My apologies for that. And as always, dear friends, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments that Russian media and public is paying attention to. And hopefully, you will find this episode informative and useful. And if so, please, dear friends, like the video, share if you can on your social platforms, and leave some commentary. This might help to deal with the tremendously aggressive YouTube algorithm. This might help on Rumble too, dear friends, if you are watching there. I'm streaming simultaneously on both my channels on YouTube and Rumble. And dear friends, after a news segment, as always, I will join community chat for a little while. If you have any questions or comments that you want to be highlighted during the stream, please use capital letters so that I will spot these questions easier. And also you can use, of course, super chat feature or round feature, as it's called on the Rumble, where my channel is monetized. This way, you will highlight your topic and also support my work. So yes, that's been said, dear friends. Let me, before I start, highlight that we have two new members on Patreon community. Trust Jesus and Montreal joined yesterday, and many thanks to both of you, dear friends, for your support and attention. Hopefully, more members of our community our bigger community on YouTube and Rumble will join us on the Patreon. That will be great support, of course. And well, that's being said, let's start with the news. And we have breaking news, by the way. Many of you already are informed, of course, about it. That well, Polish militaries early this morning claimed that they have shut down several drones. RIA Novosti and many other media outlets here in Russia are talking about it. So several drones have been shot down in Poland. The operational command of their country's armed forces claimed some of the drones that entered our airspace were shut down. Statement said the aerospace over the part of the country was shut down, but it was soon reopened. And as you can imagine, dear friends, once this news broke, about drones being intercepted in Polish airspace. Entire Western so-called media went in a full meltdown mode. Even public figures that was woke at the point at that moment, or being woke up to make some commentary, they went in a full hysteria mode. But and I will give you some examples of that, but first, let me share with you this report also that the police of the Lublin Voivode, Lublin region, I guess, or district of Poland, confirmed the discovery of the intercepted drones some 30 kilometers away from Belarusian border. Then more news come about these drones. A number of sources claim that a drone that crossed into Poland struck a private home in Lublin district, according to Polsat News, citing some local sources. And on your screen right now, you can see building that allegedly was damaged by a drone. Also, dear friends, little late this morning, several sources reported that the wreckage of another intercepted drone has been found in Poland, somewhere in a cemetery in the southeast of this quasi-state that Poland is, about 40 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. Information is allegedly confirmed by district prosecutor's office in the city of Zamość or something, right? Also, dear friends, as I said, number of representatives of the elites of the collective West, including Poland itself, by the way, went in full meltdown mode. And Donald Tusk, prime minister of this republic, stated on his Twitter X page, I guess, last night the Polish airspace was violated by a huge number of Russian drones. And he is making this claim, by the way, without providing any evidences, right? Straight away, no one knew what drones, if drones were actual or not, but Polish so-called prime minister, this intellectual bankrupt, went to blame Russia straight away. Those drones that pose a direct threat were shut down. I'm in a constant communication with the Secretary General of NATO and our allies, Tusk said. After that, Prime Minister of Poland called an emergency government meeting. RIA Novosti is reporting about it. So Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has called an emergency meeting of the cabinet in connection with the allegations of violation of the country's airspace. Government spokesman Adam Slapka said on the platform X, we have quote here, Prime Minister Donald Tusk is holding a meeting with the ministers responsible for national security. Prime Minister has called emergency meeting of the Council of Ministers for 8 o'clock in the morning local time. Well, at least for now, we don't really have any additional information how that emergency meeting went. Although what we know is that Poland announces acceleration call-up of reservists to territorial defense forces. Information is coming from Polish military. This process will cover 10 promises where reservists must show up to perform tasks within 6 to 12 hours. And just a few minutes before I started this live stream, dear friends, I saw several reports, some video footage of deployment of Polish militaries towards the Belarusian border. I don't know, was it part of exercises that are taking place or should take place in Poland in upcoming days, while Russia and Belarus will conduct military drills, Zapad 2025, or maybe something else is going on. But clearly there was footage circulating on internet about deployment of some Polish troops towards the border line areas. Well, as I said, Western media, by the way, went in a full meltdown mode. Total hysteria. Probably many of you have see this. There was a calls, by the way, for fifth article of NATO to be invoked. There was a calls NATO to do something about these drones. Trump was asked also about it, and well, he ignored the question. By the way, I have a short video of that, and let me give you this. So,
thank you.
Mr. President, any response to Russia? Mr. President, what about Russian drones getting into Polish airspace tonight?
So I guess either Trump was not briefed about it, or I don't know. He chose to ignore the question of these provocative actors that call themselves journalists. How they know if there was actually any drones? At that point, by the way, there was no photo, video evidences, nothing, just pure speculations, right? But they still state straight away that, well, what you will say about Russian drones? I mean, is this a journalism? No, by the way, you don't make claims if you are a journalist without actual evidences. Then, and no way, by the way, that journalist at that particular time knew anything at all about the matter, right? But narrative was set up, right? And all the Western media outlet went, to push this madness. But Trump, for his credit, by the way, did not make no early statements. He probably will wait for a briefing, and after that, I guess sometimes during the day he will make some Twitter post about it on his Truth Social, right? Anyways, dear friends, let's continue. And well, if Trump maintained their pause right before commenting on anything, which is the right move to do. I mean, let's get to the bottom of the situation and then do some statements, right? That's the right approach. But I guess Trump has, surprisingly maybe, but I guess Trump has much higher political culture, even if that sounds very strange. But that's That's my impression, that Trump has a higher political culture that high-ranking European officials, for example, because number one diplomat of Europe, believe it or not, Kaja Kallas, is furious after the story with Poland and the drones, claims that Russia deliberately attacked Poland. And this is my comment, by the way, that I made on True Social and on my Telegram, not True Social, by the way, I don't have an account there, on Twitter X and on my Telegram channel. That Kaja Kallas is furious after the story with Poland and the drones, claims that Russia deliberately attacked Poland, the EU, NATO, and most importantly, the Andromeda Galaxy. It's a irony, of course, but how Kaja Kallas knew anything, by the way, a few minutes after news broke? She did not knew nothing, right? But she will use any excuse, by the way, to attack Russia, right? Any excuse. And she called more money to be spent on defense and military-industrial complex. She went to blame Russia for everything, traditional stuff. But I want to just demonstrate how low the political culture of the European unelected bureaucrats actually is. Lower than political culture of Donald Trump, that acts quite irrationally, right? Quite often. And Kaja Kallas even lower than that. Also, by the way, NATO, according to Reuters, made a statement about it. NATO does not regard the incident with the drones in the Polish airspace as an attack. Reuters reports, citing a source in their alliance. So, well, NATO was not that quick, by the way, to revoke fifth article, to begin a large-scale escalation, at least immediately. Although story is not over yet, by the way. We should expect some additional statements, of course, some additional maybe steps being taken by Russian enemies that NATO member states are, leadership of NATO member states, let's say, right? And while all this craziness is going on, we had a statement from a defense ministry of Belarus that bring us little more understanding about the situation. So Belarusian Ministry of Defense stated that Minsk provided Poland with information about lost drones and shut down some of the drones. So we have a quote from the statement: during their nighttime mutual exchange of strikes with drone unmanned aerial vehicles, drones between the Russian Federation and Ukraine, their on-duty forces of Belarus and their air defense means of the Republic constantly tracked the drones that lost their course due to electronic warfare measures of the parties. Some of the lost drones were destroyed by the air defense forces of a country of the territory of the Republic. Thanks to this reaction of the Belarusian side, Poland was able to respond promptly by launching its duty forces into the air. So basically, Belarus was tracking, with assistance of Russia, obviously, was tracking drones that were flying to each direction, right? That was launched by both sides. And due to radio electronic warfare work, some of the drones were influenced, they lost their course, and the Belarusian side intercepted several of them, and I guess several did manage to reach a Polish border, entered Polish airspace, and due to information that Poland received from Belarusian side about these drones, they were able to quickly track these drones and take the necessary measures to neutralize the potential threat. Although we also have this report, dear friends, that Poland discusses application of Article 4 of a NATO consultation treaty. So Poland is discussing the application of Article 4 of the NATO treaty on consultations of which allies in connection with the reports of drones. The country's president, Karol Nawrocki, told the journalists after the meeting in the National Security Bureau. At this meeting, we discussed the possibility of implementing Article 4 of the North Atlantic Treaty. Nawrocki said Article 4 of the NATO treaty states that their contracting parties will consult each other if their territory, if their territorial integrity, political independence, or security of any of them is threatened. This article assumes that any member country of an alliance can initiate consultations if it believes that it is under threat. So Warsaw, by the way, despite information that they get from Belarus, decided to escalate further. They know this was these drones that entered Polish airspace, and they did, by the way. This was a result of the work of air defense systems. No Russian drones actually targeted Poland. Otherwise, if Russia wanted to take action against Poland, by the way, it would not send Gerbera drones, right? I saw some pictures, by the way. These drones that we are talking about is Gerbera drones. Usually these drones are used as decoys. They don't even have a warhead. Usually these drones are used as decoys by Russian forces or sometimes as surveillance drones. But I cannot remember instance when Gerbera drones were actually carrying warheads and were used as strike drones. And Polish side knows about it, right? Polish side knows about it, but our Polish leadership, extreme Russophobe leadership of Poland, this quasi-state, by the way, went through, as I said, fully hysteria mode. They are evoking Article 4, and maybe during the day, by the way, we will begin receiving information that Poland is trying to initiate or invoke Article 5 too. Okay, it's up to them, by the way. If they want their countries to turn into radioactive desert, then, I mean, they can go ahead and do this, right? After all, Poland and all the other NATO member states, by the way, are engaged in a proxy war against Russia. And somehow it's elites of these countries that are hysterical still, which is insane but that's what is happening, right? Anyways, that's what we know for this moment, dear friends. As I said, some officials in the West already are calling for Article 5, but I don't think they're gonna go that far. Probably they will make a couple of more angry statements. They will blame Russia for everything. This was an accident, by the way, right? Maybe Polish radio electronic warfare systems actually intervene into work of these drones, right? Or NATO radio electronic warfare systems. And drone went off course and entered Polish airspace. No big deal, right? Things happened. After all, Poland is directly engaged in a hostility against Russia, right? And already lost, according to Colonel McGregor, Douglas McGregor, by the way, American voice of reason, I will say, right? Highly decorated veteran. Poland already lost a couple of thousands of its troops disguised as mercenaries. And if anyone has anything to say about the situation, it's Russia. Poland has nothing to say whatsoever. And they should be grateful that Russia did not yet undertook actual retaliatory strikes on Poland and all the other NATO member states that are directly engaged in this proxy war against Russia. That's my take, and I'm quite sure vast majority of society here in Russia are on the same page with me. They should be thankful for Russian leadership that continues to exercise restraint despite all the provocations that we have seen in the past years from NATO member states, right? And this is an important point, but okay, that's when it comes to this whole story of Poland and the drones, at least for now. During the day, as I said, there are some additional news may become available, and in my second news update today, later on, late evening today, I will share those news too, and some statements that most likely will be made by Russian Defense Ministry. That being said, dear friends, before I continue, and there is still quite a number of news left, breaking news too, right? Because we are living in crazy times and a lot is happening. But before I continue, dear friends, let me just remind you that this project exists only as long as I have your support, community support. And if you like my work, if you uh, want to help me preserve these channels of mine, please consider to support the project. You can do it through several means. You can donate to the channels through PayPal platform, Boosty platform. You can subscribe to my Patreon page, which will be also a great support, of course. Our community, if our community on Patreon will double, this project will be in much more safer place than it is now. Links to my Patreon as well as PayPal and Boosty are on this video in description box. And during the live streams, you can always use super chat on round feature on Rumble to donate and also highlight any question or commentary that you have, and you can become premium subscriber there. That's been said, dear friends. As I said, all the links are on this video in the description box, and I will continue with some more news now. And as I said, there is yet another breaking news. Majority of you, of course, have heard about it. But anyways, all this story of Poland and drones are related to relatively large-scale Russian drone and missile strikes that was conducted last night on the military and logistical infrastructure of the Kiev regime. And Russian media, RIA Novosti in this particular case, reports about explosions that rock western and central Ukraine. Explosions have thundered in 4 Ukrainian cities, local media reports. Thus, at the beginning of the night, such incidents were reported in Kiev. Then, within the 2 hours, the sounds of explosions were heard in Rovno, Vinnytsia, and Lvov. At the same time, in the capital, there were at least 2 series of 3-hour break sirens, by the way. In addition, according to media reports, explosions occurred in Zhytomyr, Khmelnytsky, and Ivano-Frankivsk regions. So there was a large-scale Russian drone and missile attack on military and logistical infrastructure of the Kiev regime. And those drones, by the way, that crossed the border with Poland was a part of this operation, right? Those decoy drones. Basically, on my Telegram and Twitter X page, I did share information about it and also some maps where explosions did occur. At this point, we don't know details, how successful this Russian operation was. During the day, Russian Defense Ministry, of course, will share additional information, and I will post about it on my Telegram and Twitter X pages. Also, Russian media, based on Defense Ministry, is reporting that during the nighttime, air defense systems on duty intercepted 122 drones, by the way. Not 1, not 2, but 122 drones that was launched by Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky with assistance of NATO countries. I can give you some specifics on this attack. So Russian air defense systems on duty shut down 122 Ukrainian drones over the Russian regions and the Black Sea last night. The Russian Defense Ministry reports on September 10th from midnight to 5 o'clock this morning, air defense systems on duty destroyed and intercepted 122 Ukrainian aircraft type unmanned aerial vehicles. Statement said it is noted that 21 of them were destroyed over the Bryansk region, 17 over the Crimea, 12 over the Voronezh region, and 11 were shut down over the Belgorod and the Kursk regions and the Krasnodar region too. In addition, 9 drones were neutralized over the Oryol region, 5 over the Kaluga region, 3 over Ryazan, 2 each over the Nizhny Novgorod, Rostov, and the Tver regions, 1 over the Tula region. So as you can see, dear friends, quite a large geography of NATO attacks on Russia. This is NATO attacks, let's make no mistake, without NATO countries, first of all, US and UK providing, and France, by the way, providing Kiev regime with their flight path and the targeting data for this long-range weapon systems, drones and missiles. Kiev itself would not be, this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky would not be able to undertake such strikes. It's just, they have no technical means for that. So this is a NATO attack on Russia. Every time we are hearing news about missiles or drones were intercepted by Russian forces. It's a NATO attack on Russia. And as I said, NATO member states that are directly engaged in this proxy war against us, against Russian Federation, should be grateful to Russian leadership for tremendous nerves that Putin and others have, right? And the patience that they are still maintaining, still exercising this restraint policy and are not yet, at least, retaliating on these NATO countries. Although they know perfectly well, and the Russian president himself said on several occasions that without NATO direct assistance and involvement, Kiev regime would not be able to launch long-range strikes on Russia because they have no means for that, technical means, right? Satellite navigation and their satellite intelligence and so on. 15 Ukrainian drones were also intercepted over the Black Sea, the Russian Ministry of Defense reports. So relatively large-scale attempt of NATO and their proxy regime in Kiev to strike deep into Russian territory. Vast majority of drones were intercepted. There is a possibility that one or two drones did manage to bypass our defense systems. If so, during the day, probably we will receive information about it. And of course, I will share that information on my Telegram and Twitter X pages or in a second update later on today. That being said, dear friends, we have of course another Trump makes headlines. Trump makes headlines again when it comes to this proxy war that West is waging against Russia. This confrontation now is on a point when next phase of escalation seems absolutely inevitable. I did spoke about it on numerous occasions, and for example, this morning, by the way, when this news broke about drones, and when I see on the internet hysterical reaction and the meltdown among Western so-called elites and the media, I was thinking, you know what, maybe this is some sort of a false flag operation. That's what was first that came to my mind. Although I did understand perfectly well that air defense systems are working. Some drones might be damaged, not completely destroyed by damage, and that can influence the trajectory of this weapon system. Radio electronic warfare is working actively. That can also influence, right? So there is always possibility that some drone or missile will go off course and strike somewhere else, right? It's a high intensity conflict after all, and the NATO countries are the ones that are prolonging this confrontation. But nevertheless, first thought that came to my mind was maybe this is a false flag, by the way. Or if not, maybe NATO countries, globalists and globalist controlled regimes in Europe, first of all, will use these accidents as an opportunity to launch further escalation, next phase of escalation against Russia. And I spoke about this topic on numerous occasions. My personal expectation, which is based on information from open sources, analysis of the information from open sources, my personal expectations is that globalist control regimes in Europe, collective West, gonna go on the next phase of escalation, and that will look like a massive launch, unprecedented scale of long-range strikes on Russia with the drones and missiles. And on this topic, we all know already that the U.S. just recently provided or made the decision to provide Kiev regime with long-range cruise missiles with a range of 400 to 450 kilometers. Right? We all already know that France and the UK are engaged against Russia with their Storm Shadow and their Scalp-PG cruise missiles, right? That were launched on numerous occasions. A few days ago, there was a last episode when Donetsk was targeted with Storm Shadow missile. Also, we know from statements of Russian Foreign Intelligence Service that Merz issued order for German militaries to remove all the factorial signs on the Taurus missiles that are transferred already to Kiev control their territory. which means, by the way, that and there is more and more indicators that West is preparing this next phase of escalation with a large scale, unprecedented scale of long-range strikes deep into Russia with the drones and missiles. Also, they will use, NATO countries will use their assets, most of their assets potentially, to conduct some sabotage operations inside the Russia, large-scale sabotage operations, terrorist attacks on Russian territory. Simultaneously, we should expect a large-scale or maybe even unprecedented scale of cyber attacks on Russia, on Russian infrastructure from their collective West countries, West globalists and their control regimes in Europe and their allies, by the way, will try to create this chaotic situation, right, to bring down Russian government. They're gonna fail, by the way. They're gonna fail big time. And once they will go ahead with this escalation with Russia, I'm quite sure Moscow, at that point, Moscow will retaliate. Moscow will just have no option but to retaliate on all the NATO member states, their military assets that will be engaged directly in this attack, right? So next phase of escalation is very close, I think. And there is two directions, right, that Western elites are pushing right now. One is a military escalation and other is economical pressure. And on this matter, lately, all the media outlets, so-called media outlets in the West, are pushing for a narrative of more sanctions being imposed on Russia and tariffs being imposed on Russian allies or Russian trade partners. And Trump is leading the charge, by the way. US is leading the charge because we have reports that Washington is imposing quite significant pressure on European elites, for example, to force them to impose on Russia more sanctions, and not just on Russia, but also on Russian allies. But nevertheless, while this escalation is happening, and I will give you some more information on that in a minute, Trump continues to be engaged in a deception operation to basically, in his attempt to fool Russia, right, once again. And every other day he is talking about that he's going to have some phone conversation with the Russian president either today or tomorrow or day after, maybe next week or something like that. And Western so-called journalists using every opportunity to ask him about this freaking phone conversation, as if conversations that two presidents had earlier made any difference. And therefore, I would prefer Russian president to refuse any conversation with the Trump, because what is the point in that, right? There is no point. After Anchorage summit, there was a cautious optimism that maybe US leadership will actually take their country out of this proxy war against Russia, but things did not go that way. In a few days' time, Trump had a meeting with European so-called leaders, right, with Zelensky, and he flip-flopped again, right? So therefore, I don't think there is any point for Russian president to have any conversation with Trump, because it's just senseless, literally senseless, right? You are wasting your time. But nevertheless, Trump was asked about a conversation once again, and let me give you a short clip of his answer on that. So where is the video? That's it.
President, did Israel tell you in advance?
Oh, this is about
So you were
Oh, okay. I will get to that point. Basically, Trump once again said during the comment that he will have a phone conversation with the Russian president either in next several days or maybe next week. Let's see, by the way. But I don't expect even if phone conversation will take place, I don't expect anything good to come out of that conversation. It will be a waste of time for Russian president. Also, I want to share with you, dear friends, this report that U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent again announces readiness for tougher measures against Russia. As I said, there is two ways, right, that West is escalating. One is a military escalation, next phase that they are preparing and might be launched at any time, any day now. And the other is this economical stuff, right? And well, we have statement of Bassett himself that he wrote on his Twitter X. The United States and the European Union are aligned on the importance of ending the war in Ukraine, and all options remain on the table as a part of a POTU strategy to support peace negotiations. Business as usual has not worked. We are willing to take strong measures against Russia, but our European partners must fully join us in this to be successful. I made this clear today when meeting with the EU Commission sanctions envoy David O'Sullivan. So he had a conversation with this EU envoy yesterday, and well, US is increasing pressure on Europe, by the way, to impose more sanctions, not just on Russia, but also to impose tariffs on Russian allies, right? Russian trade partners. Let's see where this whole topic will go. I believe US is demanding, and I mean, for example, let me give you this news on top of what I already shared, by the way, that Trump wants you to slap India and China, for example, with 100% tariffs. And this was reported by Financial Times. So President Donald Trump has urged the European Union to impose tariffs of up to 100% on imports from China and India as a part of joint efforts to pressure Moscow, the Financial Times reported on Tuesday. According to the newspaper, Trump made the demand during the recent call in to a meeting between senior US and EU officials in Washington, where strategies for rising the economic cost of the Ukraine conflict for Russia were being discussed. One US official said Washington was ready to go right now, but we are only going to do this if our European partners step up with us. The president came on this morning, and his view is that the obvious approach here is let's all put on the dramatic tariffs and keep their tariffs on until the Chinese agree to stop buying the oil. The source was quoted as saying, a second official added that the US was prepared to mirror any tariffs imposed by Brussels on Beijing and New Delhi. And if so, dear friends, the US already has some 50% tariffs on India, right? And there are 50-something% tariffs on China, I believe. So if US leadership is successful, and if they will force Brussels or European so-called elites to impose 100% tariffs on China and India, then, well, US seems like is ready to double their tariffs that they have on these two countries. Potentially, they are also considering other countries too that are cooperating with Russia, but these two obviously are major economies when it comes to global South and the trade with Russia. EU officials have already begun debating potential secondary sanctions against China for its energy imports from Moscow. Through they stressed their talks were still in an early stage and depends on US support, according to article earlier in Financial Times. And dear friends, can you imagine what will happen to European economies and the US economies if they will actually go ahead with 100% tariffs on India and China? I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens of goods that these countries are, US and EU countries are buying from China and India. And if they will go ahead with this 100% tariffs, then most likely they will force UK and Canada to join too, Australia, New Zealand, and all the others that are part of Collective West. So can you imagine how big of a strike that would be on the consumer market in these countries? Dozens and dozens of items gonna just disappear, not just gonna go like twice, 3 times more expensive, but gonna disappear from the shelves. Are these people that are in charge of Collective West even capable of understanding what they are doing? Do they even have for themselves any understanding of why they are doing this nonsensical, crazy stuff? I don't know, man. I don't know, but that's where we are. That's where we are, right? Anyways, let me continue with some more news. And well, as I reported in yesterday's second live stream, dear friends, later on in the evening, we had a major breaking news that Israeli forces strike senior Hamas officials in Doha, capital of Qatar. RIA Novosti reported that Israeli army said that it had struck senior Hamas officials. So the Israeli army and the Israeli security agency carried out a precise strike on senior Hamas officials. The army telegraph channel reported yesterday, as reported also by Israeli TV Channel 12, the IDF struck Hamas leaders in Doha, Qatar. And there was a confusion yesterday, by the way, straight after this attack took place. Some sources were reporting that negotiating team of Hamas, including a leader of this team and one of their leading figures in Hamas, was killed as a result of this attack. Khalil al-Hayya, to be exact. Number of other resources, including Al Jazeera TV channel, claimed that Hamas leadership survived this attack, although there was civilian casualties. There were civilian casualties. Nevertheless, as a result of this attack, even Qatari nationals were killed and wounded during this attack. But later on, more and more resources report that well, this attack of Israel was a failure because all the leading figures in this negotiating team of Hamas survived their assassination attempt. And reports are, by the way, that U.S. play a key role to lure into this trap these people. You remember 2-3 days ago, Trump came up with an ultimatum, sort of, against Hamas, that they have to take his new initiative, discuss it, and agreed to end hostilities in Palestine. This negotiating team, to discuss this Trump's initiative, went to the meeting place in Doha, so that Israeli side knew perfectly well where to attack. But something went wrong for Israelis there. These people probably, maybe by random stuff, but maybe by being informed by someone, they were not at the place of Israeli strikes, right? And they survived. And we have also a statement from Hamas itself that its leadership survived Israeli strike on Qatar. Palestinian militant group Hamas has claimed their Israeli attack on its compound in the Qatari capital of Doha on Tuesday was largely unsuccessful and that its top members survived. However, the attack did kill the son of Khalil al-Hayya, leader of Hamas, the group's political bureau head, as well as a senior aide, according to Suhail al-Hindi, a senior Hamas member. 3 bodyguards of the group's leader remain unaccounted for after the strike. He told Al Jazeera the blood of the leadership of their movement is like the blood of any Palestinian child. Al-Hindi stated the heinous Israeli attack was an attempt to kill those discussing ending their war on Gaza. He added, corroborating earlier reports that the group's leadership was hit when it had gathered to discuss the latest U.S. proposals on settling their conflict with Israel. And dear friends, straight after speculations began about role that U.S. play in this assassination attempt of the Hamas leadership. And of course, by the way, there is not even a slight chance that U.S. leadership didn't knew about it. They knew about it. I'm quite sure they even had a pre-planned speech or statement for Trump and the other officials in U.S. what they would say, how, and how they would justify killing of yet another group of negotiators, which is a crime, by the way. by international norms, right? But U.S. leadership, Israel leadership, they don't care about international law, international norms, anything, right? They just literally don't care, right? And I'm quite sure they had a planned statements, but Israel failed to kill all of the leading members of Hamas, and therefore they began pushing the other narrative, false narrative, that the U.S. was not involved in this and did not even knew or just get the information when Israeli planes were already targeting this place in the Doha. Do you believe in this? Really? But anyways, by the way, Israel defense minister issued the ultimatum to Hamas. Yet another one. So Israeli defense minister Israel Katz has issued an ultimatum to Hamas, threatening to destroy the Palestinian movement and the city of Gaza, as if anything is left from Gaza city, really. So if Hamas do not accept Israel's conditions for ending the war, primarily those concerning the release of all hostages and the surrender of the weapons, they will be destroyed and Gaza will be destroyed. Department's press service quoted him as saying so. By the way, Israeli fascists, including these criminals that are formally in charge of Israel, they are no longer even trying, by the way, to hide their genocidal intent, right? They are openly saying they're going to destroy whole city. And what that means, by the way, that means killing everybody. That's what that means, right? And they are leveling, by the way. If any building did survive assault of Israel until now, one way or another, they are destroying those buildings too. They are leveling Gaza City right now as we speak, and for quite a while, isn't it? They are continuing to commit genocide against Palestinian people. They are continuing, Israeli fascists, by the way, continue to commit crimes against humanity on daily basis. And as I said many times before, only realistic way, by the way, to stop fascist Israel from killing innocent people in mass, to commit genocide, is to organize world's gathering, by the way, either on sidelines of UN or elsewhere, because UN is compromised, right? Because US, France, and UK have a veto in UN, and therefore UN is compromised. Maybe some other platform will be chosen, right? Or created for that matter. And the world community have to get together, I guess, with the exception of collective West countries, because they are all in support of Israeli genocide of Palestinian people. All of them, by the way. They might make some statements here and there, but they are still providing Israel with their weapons, intelligence, munition. They still are trading with Israel, providing Israeli genocidal maniacs with their means to continue genocide. So collective West countries, majority of them at least, probably will stay out of this, but rest of the world, which is 80% of humanity, by the way, has to get together and create a military force that will demilitarize and denazify Israel. This is only way forward. If we truly want, if humanity truly wants to achieve peace, sustainable peace in the Middle East, then major distraction towards the peace, major obstacle towards the peace, this fascist entity that modern Israel is, has to be demilitarized, and fascist Israelis, and they are vast majority of the citizens of Israel, by the way, vast majority, not one or two or five people, but vast majority, based on social studies, exactly vast majority is in absolute support of all the crimes that Israel has committed against Palestinians. So vast majority of these fascists in Israel have to undergo denazification programs. This is only way forward, by the way. Everything else is a waste of time. Everything else is a waste of time. You're not gonna stop Israeli fascists uh, by statements or with statements, right? World community has to get together, create a military force, right, and take action. And this fascist entity that modern Israel is has to be demilitarized and denazified and put in the borders of 1948. That's it. That's it, by the way. That's what has to happen. In that case, there might be a chance for a sustainable peace in the Middle East. Otherwise, fascist Israel will continue to murder hundreds of thousands of people, by the way, potentially millions of people. Because we should keep in mind, Israel is a nuclear armed fascist state. Right? That's the way to go, by the way. That's the way to go. Everything else is a waste of time. And they are not even trying to hide their genocidal nature, by the way, right? They're openly, high-ranking officials in Israel, by the way, openly are stating that what they intend is they want to kill everybody. They want to kill all Palestinians, and if anyone will survive, they want them to force out, right? That's their intent, and they're not hiding that. Also, dear friends, I think this is this information worth our attention, that Gaza aid ship was burning after the drone attack, Israeli drone attack. 9 people were aboard of their Alma when a drone dropped their explosive. No casualties were reported. This is second time, by the way, Israel is dropping incendiary munition on this flotilla of small vessels that are moving towards the Gaza with some aid. I saw a video, by the way, and it did not look like a strike with a conventional anti-ship missile or something. It was clearly incendiary munition. It was burning in the air while flying towards the vessel, right? So this is second time they burned their vessel. I guess before this flotilla will get to Gaza, Israeli fascists will burn all of these vessels. For now, there are no casualties reported, but you just never know. With Israeli fascists, you never know. They might kill all of them, literally, at any point, right? And when it comes to Middle East, by the way, I reported yesterday in the second update that Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi arrived in Cairo, Egypt. He had a conversation with the local leaders, of course, but according to media reports, he was planning to have a meeting with the head of IAEA, Rafael Grossi, and later on yesterday, reports actually came in about agreement that was reached between Iran and IAEA. And I saw videos, by the way, when I believe Araghchi and Rafael Grossi, this despicable human being, former head of IAEA, in reality, International Atomic Energy Agency is run by Israeli Secret Services, US Secret Services, and British Secret Services. We all know that, right? So Abbas Araghchi was signing some new agreement with Rafael Grossi. And soon, I guess, Iran will allow IAEA experts back into Iranian nuclear facilities, and those are IAEA so-called experts going to spy on Iran again and provide Israel with precise information, as they did before this 12-day war, recent 12-day war that Israel and US started against Iran. And not over yet. It's just a ceasefire between the sides, right? And that war can reignite at any time. So I think Iran is making mistake, by the way. Best chance for survival of Iran is to build nuclear weapons at this point. If they actually want, I know many people in Iran, including Supreme Leader, by the way, were and still are against nuclear weapons to be built, right? But all of them see what Israel did to them, right? And what US did. So if they want to save the Republic as it is, right? Save their traditions and their way of life, they have to go nuclear. They have to go nuclear, by the way. right? There is an example of North Korea. No one is really messing around them. No one is bombing North Korea. And you guessed why? Because they have a nukes battle, right? So yes, sir, if Iran will go nuclear, if Iran will acquire nuclear weapons, of course, that will trigger other regional countries to go nuclear also, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and others. Yes, it's reality. But for self-defense, I mean, does Iran has any other options? Either they're going to go nuclear or eventually Western so-called elites will destroy this republic. That's how it is, man, right? Let's not kid ourselves, right? That's what it is. Either Iran will go nuclear and no one will mess around it, or they will continue to be engaged in all sorts of deception operations that West is conducting against them under pretext of diplomacy, and they will lose. Iran will lose. Iranian people will lose, right? And I said a million times before that globalists and their neocon allies, or Zionists also, and all the others that pull in the string in the West, in the Western world, they are dreaming about provoking large-scale regional war in the Middle East. And main target for them to create this regional war and to shut down navigation into a Persian Gulf and cut off China from the energy sources of the region. Main target is Iran, right? That's how it is, man. So anyways, let me continue. And well, as I said, we are living in crazy times, by the way. There are breaking news, is coming day in, day out, right? And yesterday, after several days of bloody riots on the streets of Nepali cities, eventually these rioters managed to force government to run away, literally run away, by the way. Some of them did manage to run away. Some of them were evacuated by helicopters. I saw this morning video, by the way, that helicopter from government building was lifting something, by the way, and the officials were trying to hang on ropes and stuff. That's how some of them managed to escape. Probably some people failed, right, and crashed to the death. I saw videos that some officials were drowned into a river, by the way, stripped naked, and they're beaten like there were no humans or something. It was insane. It was absolutely insane what was happening in Nepal. President of country, according to a number of reports, president of Nepal, Ramchandra Paudel, has resigned. According to other sources, he did not. But Prime Minister of Nepal for sure resigned. Sharma Oli is the name of that former, at this point, Prime Minister. And well, based on videos that I see, by the way, almost no official building is left in Nepal that was not tortured by this angry mob criminals, basically. They burned down, by the way, one of the oldest administrative buildings in a region, not just in the country, but in a region, by the way. They burned down their parliament building, I believe, which was built in 1903 or something, right? Government buildings were tortured, as I said, total chaos. And then at nighttime, militaries overthrew kind of on the situation. Militaries were deployed to the streets to take the control. And at this point, it's not yet fully known who is in charge there in Nepal, who controls this Himalayan quasi-state. It's not really state, by the way, right? It's a laugh to say that Nepal is a state. There were 300 to 400 Russian tourists at the time of this madness that was happening there in Nepal, and based on information of Russian embassy, none of them were hurt, which is a good news, sir. But unfortunately, there were dozens and dozens of casualties as a result of this unrest that was orchestrated, in my personal opinion, by Western secret services, because Western secret services and Western elites, by the way, basically want to destabilize whole of global South in their proxy war against China, they will use any means, right? And they are engaged in a proxy war with China too. It's just not a hot phase yet. It's a cold phase for now, but they will go a hot phase through, and they are destabilizing country after country after country. Indonesia, Nepal, just a little earlier, by the way, Bangladesh, right? There was a war between Cambodia and Thailand, right? They were shelling each other. All the others will be also not forgotten by Western class. They will try to destabilize whole region, by the way, because of their because they are unable, by the way, to have actually decent relationships with anybody. They cannot respect nobody. They cannot have decent relationships or respect to anybody. I mean, it's a Western ruling class. What you expect from them, by the way, right? Total degenerates. So therefore, only way they know is to kill, destroy, divide, and conquer. That's the Western way, right? And for if you don't believe me, take a look at the last 300 to 500 years at least, right? And you will find out what I'm talking about. Also, interesting. I did spoke about this news, by the way, yesterday during the second news update. I'm not going to repeat all the news that I spoke about yesterday, but I give you a few of them. If you are interested, check out my yesterday's live streams. So RIA Novosti reported that U.S. permanent representative to NATO announced that Kiev was ready to freeze the front line. Let me give you some details. Ukraine is ready to agree to end the hostilities with Russia along their current line of contact, U.S. permanent representative to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, said in an interview with the Fox News. We have quotes here. They are ready to freeze the front line if they receive security guarantees. He said, in his opinion, condition that will allow Kiev to stop the conflict could be a system of guarantees with the presence of European troops as instructors or peacekeepers on Kiev-controlled territory. I mean, they still push this narrative, by the way. U.S. is on board, absolutely on board, with this yet another phase of escalation that West is preparing. And Washington officials are still pushing this freaking narrative that is absolutely unacceptable for Moscow, that they should be NATO troops on Kiev-controlled territory. Moscow said many times, no, this will not happen. Or if you will deploy your troops, we will take them as legit combatants, and then in that case, like bring body bags too with you. That's Moscow's message to NATO, right? But they are not listening. They are not listening, by the way. They are, as I said, they are incapable to listen to nobody. They are incapable to take in account opinions of others, national interests of others. They just simply don't care, right? They still consider themselves to be only force in this world, and everyone should obey their orders. That's their attitude, right? And they are mistaken. Of course, they are mistaken. World has changed big times, by the way, since 80s and 90s and early 2000s. World has changed tremendously since then, right? And Western world is no longer, Western elites no longer unchallenged dominant force in this world, but they are struggling to understand this. They are struggling to realize this, right? And you can see this in their behavior, in their policies. Anyways, by the way, also Italian foreign minister Antonio Tajani went to claim when it comes to Ukraine, by the way. I should share this information when I was talking about Ukrainian crisis. But nevertheless, I think this news also deserves our attention. So Antonio Tajani, head of Italian foreign ministry, stated that RIM will propose analog to fifth article for Kiev regime instead of deploying troops on Kiev-controlled territory, which is also Wrong approach, also wrong approach, actually suicidal approach, to be frank, right? Because if let's say countries of the so-called coalition of willing will actually adopt on a legislative level that they will provide their military assistance to Kiev regime, if conflict will reignite after, let's say, peace is reached or ceasefire or anything like that, right? Then where is the guarantees that globalists not going to provoke next phase of escalation? And then what these countries going to do? They're going to enter direct war with Russia? Are they suicidal or what? So this idea will also not fly. This is nonsense, man. This is nonsense, and it should be societies in the West. It should be societies in European states that should have their say, right? But unfortunately, majority of people there is in deep sleep, and there seems like being indoctrinated in all these fake narratives, and they're no longer capable of seeing reality. And there also, dear friends, TASS news agency reported that Poland shut down border with Belarus due to Zapad 2025 exercises of Russian and Belarusian troops that gonna take place on 11, from 12th to 16th of September. Border will be shut down from midnight from 11th to 12th of September. No details for how long this border will be shut down, but let's see, brother. So yes, that's just something to keep in mind. Their increased security on the border need not help them, isn't it? With the freaking drones that whole of Western world is talking about now. Anyways, what else do I have bookmarked, by the way? Oh, India and China, by the way. Well, U.S. President Donald Trump posted on his Truth Social some complimentary words about India, about relationships with the Indian Prime Minister, right? I can read it to you, dear friends. So Trump wrote on his Truth Social, "I'm pleased to announce that India and the United States of America are continuing negotiations to address the trade barriers between our nations. I look forward to speaking with my very good friend, Prime Minister Modi, in the upcoming weeks. I feel certain that there will be no difficulty in coming to successful conclusion for both of our great countries." And for whatever reason, Indian Prime Minister responded in kind. India and US are close friends and neutral partners. No, Narendra Modi, India and US are not the friends. US don't have friends, man. And this excessive politeness is actually harmful. Just be real, man. Do real politics and talk the truth, right? India never considered US to be its friend. Indian people, at least, that have a good memory and remember that in 1971, by the way, it was US that was leading charge against India, and if not Soviet Union, India would be obliterated, right? By US allies, US Western allies, and their Pakistan and others. So since when US become a friend of India? When they supplied lots of weapons to Pakistan, modern weapons, and share intelligence, or since when? Anyways, let's go through response from Modi. India and US are close friends and natural partners. I am confident that our trade negotiations will pave the way for unlocking the limitless potential of the India and US partnership. Our teams are working to conclude these discussions at the earliest. I am also looking forward to speaking with the President Trump. We will work together to secure brighter, more prosperous future for both our people. Okay, very polite diplomatic statements from Narendra Modi, but I think this excessive politeness, not just from Indian politicians, but from Russian politicians too, by the way, from Russian high-ranking officials too, is a bit irritating at this point. Because we all understand, right, that Western so-called elites cannot be trusted. We all know perfectly well that Western so-called elites, by the way, are using diplomacy as a tool of deception, as a weapon. They have weaponized diplomacy, by the way, so they cannot be trusted in principle, right? And right now on your screen, dear friends, you have a prime example of that. While Trump is talking about normalizing relationships with India, same time, very same Trump, by the way, just yesterday demanded from EU representative that visited Washington to talk about sanctions on India and China and others. Trump demanded 100% tariffs to be imposed on India, right? And other countries that are friendly to Russia by the European Union. So, come on, man, come on. Trump cannot be trusted ever on any topic. And it's not just Trump. It's a whole Western world, by the way. Elites of the Western world that cannot be trusted ever. They weaponized diplomacy, by the way. And not just now, but for a long time. They are constantly lying, right? There is no agreement that any of the Western countries actually honor it, right? No agreement, by the way, that they honor it. They don't care. And I think we have to stop pretending that this is not the case. Let's be real, for God's sake, right? This is the way to go forward. Trump is engaged in a deception operation against Russia, against India, against China, against all the other countries. And he is using diplomacy as a weapon, right? To mislead the leaders of the other countries. It's so freaking obvious, by the way, that I don't know. I don't think I need to explain this, but it seems like leadership of Russia and China and there are many other countries, India, don't understand this or ignoring this objective truth. They understand what is going on, but they're still choosing to ignore this reality. And that's why Russian president went to Alaska a couple of weeks ago. And that's why Russian president probably will take a phone call from Donald Trump in upcoming days or next week or whatever. This is wrong, man. This is wrong. How many times we have to be fooled? I mean, how many times we have to be fooled by Western so-called elites to learn the lesson that you cannot negotiate with them anything. We just cannot trust them, right? They are always lying, always. So stop pretending. If and when Western societies will manage to reclaim their own countries and change their so-called elites, and when Western societies, or if Western societies will manage to put adequate people, decent people, actually decent people in position of power, then things will change. Then Western countries will be led by decent human beings with whom you actually can talk, have agreements, and you will know that they will honor this agreement. But now, these totally corrupt so-called elites of the West cannot be trusted ever, by the way, period, right? It's that simple that I don't know, man. I don't know why leadership of Russia, India, China, and others are not saying this openly, right? This has to be said openly for whole world to understand. And let's not pretend and not play this nonsensical politeness, right? What the hell, man? Anyways, dear friends, this is it when it comes to a news segment for today's first update. Right? Hopefully you did like the video, dear friends, news segment of it. And if so, like the video, click that like button, and leave some commentary. That will be helpful to deal with the algorithm and potentially reach wider audience. And I guess there was no super chat during the, at least until now, on Rumble. There was no donations on any other platform, so therefore I will join community chat for a little while. But first, let me once again, dear friends, highlight that we have two new members on the Patreon community, and I welcome both Trust Jesus and Montreal. Thank you very much for your support and attention, for subscribing to my Patreon page and becoming a Patreon or a sponsor for this project. I appreciate your support and truly grateful. Thank you. Hopefully, more members of our bigger communities from YouTube and Rumble will follow your example. I hope so. And dear friends, on my behalf, I will definitely try to, because I have two updates nowadays. I will definitely try to make walk and talk videos. By the way, longer versions of the walk and talk videos for Patreon, so that on YouTube and Rumble I will publish a shorter version, and full videos will be on Patreon, so that you will always have exclusive, and more content exclusively for Patreon is also coming as my thank for your uh, support. That's been said, dear friends. Let's go through chat now, and I see. And once again, hello everybody, your friends. I see Alexander G here. Nikos is here, Svetlana Vladimirovna, Smoky Sally, Nathan Dunning is here, and then many others, Michael Kennedy, Alexandria Blacker, Barner account. Thank you all, dear friends. Thank everybody for your attention, and let's go through chat now. If I see questions and the comments that are directed to me, I will react on it, dear friends. So Nikos is commenting, they are going to do it. They are going to send troops. Anyways, why are we even debating this? Finland is being armed up to teeth with 15 new bases. They will invade Russia. Well, I don't know about invasion of Russia, at least for now and foreseeable future. But they will definitely, um, they are engaged in a war with Russia, uh, while maintaining plausible deniability. That's why this war that West is waging against us is called the proxy war, right? But they are preparing. They are preparing, and we should expect literally anything from Western elites. Literally anything. I try to explain in my, in previous videos that as far as I can tell, dear friends, globalists and globalist-controlled regimes in the Western world, Western so-called elites, they are considering this confrontation with Russia sort of, especially in Europe, by the way, European elites, they are considering this confrontation as an existential conflict for them, because they understand. I mean, they might not be very bright people, the so-called elites in Europe, but at least they understand that without resources, they would not be able to maintain more or less relevant position on a geopolitical scale, right? And because they are unable to have a decent relationships with anybody, including with Russia, uh, they are going for their traditional method to attack, kill, destroy, divide, and conquer, right? And they provoke this proxy war against Russia, while dreaming about not just achieving strategical defeat of Russia, but also dividing Russia, conducting regime change, then dividing Russia and grabbing all the resources that they want, right? And it's just not just oil and gas, but also rare earth, all sorts of other minerals, metals, timber, and literally, I mean, everything you want, by the way, you can find in Russia. It's By natural resources, Russia is the number one country in this world, right? With their approximate volume of $75 trillion, right? This is resources that already been discovered. 75 trillion, by the way. So what has not yet been discovered? It's probably like 2, 3, 5, 10 times more, right? So because Western elites are unable to do proper relationships with anybody, including Russia, which will give them an opportunity to have a good trade, good business with Russia, right? And to receive whatever they need, right? To buy basically whatever they need, and therefore sustain not just economies, but also a position, more or less relevant position on the geopolitical scale. Because they cannot, they are unable, mentally unable, by the way, right, to respect anybody and to do business with respect to anybody. They attacked Russia, right? And for them, this is existential stuff. They know if they lose this war, by the way, they are finished, right? And that's the reason why they will try to prolong this proxy war against Russia until last Ukrainian. And if necessary, if they will still have delusional ideas that they still can achieve strategical defeat of Russia, they will sacrifice others too, by the way. They will sacrifice Baltic states. They will force them to go on some provocations that will force Moscow to react. If that would not work, they will sacrifice Polish people and Poland. They will sacrifice everybody, right? Literally everybody, by the way, because they don't care about people. All they care is themselves, right? Period. This is not a topic of discussion, right? So therefore, by the way, they will go on all sorts of provocations, and I'm afraid we're going to see in upcoming days this next level of escalation with Russia that I was talking about quite often in my recent updates. I don't think they will go ahead with their direct invasion of Russia right now, but of course, Russian side should be ready for anything, by the way. And Russian, just a couple of days ago, former Russian president and current deputy chairman of the Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, was on the border with Finland, by the way, for a reason, right? Because Russian side is monitoring developments, and we do understand that there is a threat, right? Increased threats from many directions, and I guess Russian military, Russian security services are taking all the necessary steps to be ready for whatever provocations globalists and globalist control regimes in Europe gonna come up with, and their allies, right? But I agree with you, Nikos. They are on a point that they're gonna go all the way until globalists are forced to acknowledge objective reality and basically capitulate, until Russia will force Western so-called elites to capitulate, and we will do it, by the way. Russia will force them to capitulate. This is only a matter of time. Until we will force them to capitulate, they will continue escalation. That's how it is, man. I'm scrolling, dear friends, in I did not highlight, isn't it, Nikos's comment? That's the commentary from Nikos that I was reacting to, dear friends. Now let's scroll through chat, and I remind you, dear friends, that you can still use while I'm online the super chat feature on Rumble to send donation and also some question or the comment. And you can donate, by the way, through PayPal or Boosty. And most importantly, you can, if you want, or if you like my work and want to support, you can subscribe to my Patreon page. Of course, links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. Alexandria Black is commenting. I watch you on the Rumble too. Thank you very much, Alexandria. Of course, if you can, to, if you have account, especially if you can watch on Rumble, that will be also assistance to this project, because more people will watch videos on Rumble. Probably Rumble algorithm will show the video to in recommendations, right? And maybe more people will subscribe. So yes, if you can, if it's not too inconvenient for you, dear friends, to watch my updates on Rumble, then please do it. It might help actually. So let's scroll fast. Live stream is already 1.5 hours, so I will scroll fast now. If I spot your questions, dear friends, I will react on it. If not, then well, this is it then. George Taffis is commenting, Luban, I believe NATO try relentlessly the new false flag to escalate, but due to God and the Russian Federation restraint, we are not all dead. Unfortunately, I live in a so-called NATO country. I mean, they are escalating. I spoke about this so many times, and we should expect false flag any time, by the way. False flag operations that they might use for this next phase of for justification of the next phase of escalation, right? So it's all this risk of false flags and the next level of escalation in all of our minds, right? We all think about such risks because it does exist, right? They're not gonna stop. They're not gonna stop until they are forced to stop. They will not. Dylan Thomas is commenting, Poland trying to invoke Article 5, the rest of NATO saying no. We will overlook it this time. Stop shooting down Russian drones. You idiots. I did not see yet, by the way, reports that Poland officially tried to invoke Article 5. They are trying to invoke Article 4, which is a discussion stage, right? They're going to discuss the matter. And I don't think they will go Article 5, at least for now. At least for now. But anything is possible. When we are talking about Western ruling class, I mean, you should expect literally anything, right? Literally anything. Dylan Thomas is making statement here in regards to Donald Trump. You can all read, dear friends. I have no respect for Donald Trump. That's for sure. And I mean, I don't think anybody in our community has any doubts about it, right? He's it's an issue for America First people, first of all, right? That they voted for this guy, and there are so many of them are now tremendously disappointed. So many of them, right? Including from members of our community, by the way, that are commenting about it, right? Also, so many public figures and leading voices among America First movement, right? I mean, one might argue that MAGA is disappointed in Trump big time because, I mean, for what they're going to be happy? Everything Trump promised during the election campaign, everything he stands for, he just forgot literally on the first day he went in office, and he's pushing very same neocon policies, right? He become even worse, by the way, than previous administration by Biden, which is, I mean, people would argue that that's not even possible, but yes, seems like it is possible. Trump is about to start new war with Venezuela, by the way, isn't it? He not just did not pull out U.S. from proxy war against Russia. He did not pull out U.S. He not just did not pull out U.S. from Middle Eastern conflicts, and he did not and did not focus on U.S. He is escalating with Russia, escalating in the Middle East. He bombed Iran, by the way, under his orders. U.S. bombed Iran, right? He is absolutely complicit in genocide of Palestinian people that Israel is committing, and in literally in a couple of days' time, he might start another war with Venezuela this time. So, I mean, for what reason MAGA people are gonna be happy with him? I mean, is there anything? Some might argue, well, border is close at least on the south of US. Okay, maybe argument that border is not completely sealed, as Trump loves to say, but more attention is being paid to border and what? These all PR campaigns, by the way. These are PR campaigns that border is sealed and cities are secured now and that kind of stuff. This to achieve success in these extremely difficult fields, you cannot do it in a day or two or five. By the way, it's a long term solutions are needed, right? And did Trump come up with their solutions? I did not hear none, right? So he gonna keep U.S. militaries on a constant basis now in American cities. Is that a solution? I don't think so. I mean, I'm not even sure this is constitutional to deploy U.S. Troops into cities, right? But let Americans figure it out. By the way, it's their internal business. So let them figure it out. Barner account is commenting. Everyone thinks seems to think it can't happen. No one would be that stupid. Evidence is everywhere. Presented daily that it is possible. Exhibit A, Kaya Kallas before her, their other dancer. They have a top. I guess you mean Barney confrontation between West and Russia, and the risk is there. Risk is there for sure. If collective West will go ahead with their next phase of escalation with Russia, in a way that I think they might do, which is a long-range strikes with unprecedented scale long-range strikes on Moscow, potentially attempt to conduct decapitation operation against Russian military and political leadership. Also, if they will, simultaneously use their assets here in Russia that they might have and probably do to conduct terrorist attacks internally to create chaos. And if cyber attacks, massive cyber attacks are done simultaneously, then and God knows what else they're gonna come up with. In that case, of course, Moscow don't really have a choice but to retaliate. I mean, what you would do if you were a Russian leader and your country come up with this under this sort of attack, you will retaliate, right? You will retaliate, and I guess that's what Russia will do. Yet again, if globalists and globalist control regimes in the West will dare to go ahead with this next phase of escalation, and that retaliation gonna be on such a scale, Russian retaliation, that will probably shortly after force globalists to accept, to capitulate, basically, right? And in that case, we might actually see then the escalation, but not before that. Also, Zoltan Ronald Fiedler is commenting. One military summary channel has revealed yesterday a map showing Ukraine divided and controlled by UK, France, Poland, and Romania. Will they use this drone attack as their excuse to do it? Well, I did not watch that particular update. I don't know what map he was showing, Dima was showing. Yesterday, I believe I showed you a map that was published by Killnet hacker group. if that's the map that you are talking about, if that's the map that Dima also presented, then well, I don't think that West will be able to succeed in attempt to divide Ukraine in such a manner, right? But because I don't know what exactly map was presented by Dima, it's hard to me to comment on the matter. When it comes to will NATO use, NATO member states will use our current situation with Poland and the drones to deploy their troops into Kiev-controlled territory. Most likely not, but yet again, when it comes to Western-backed terrorists, when it comes to Western supporters, Western allies of this terrorist regime of Zelensky, anything is possible. Anything is possible. So we cannot rule out completely that they would not use this situation to deploy their troops, but I will say chances on that is very little. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't think they are. They're gonna send their troops now. Let's see. Let's see. And dear friends, I guess that's about it for today. I see Daniel there while his comment relevant Trump's blood. Trump's blood is flowing in Slavic people. He and Putin were put in the same corner because of this. Putin you are saying that Trump has some Slavic roots. I mean, maybe he's a German, isn't it? Originally, his ancestors were German and also from British Island, but maybe or from Ireland or something. I'm not his biographer, so I don't really know. But in any ways, at least for now, Trump did not, and his administration did not seems to be about the escalation with Russia. Unfortunately, my take. I would love to see the escalation between Russia and US. I really see if US is run or led by decent people, adequate people, then I see tremendous potential for relationships between the two countries. But until US citizens will reclaim their own country, by the way, they're gonna be no decent human beings in the US leadership. It is what it is, right? Current corrupt system that is in place in US will not allow decent human beings to ever get to actual decision-making proposition. It's just not possible. US needs a revolution, actual revolution, by the way, to get rid of this corrupt system, get rid of corrupt class of officials and the bureaucracy, and to implement a new system, new political, economical system, new elites, right? And in that case, yes, US might transform tremendously and become a force for a good. But right now, I mean, even when I say this, that, well, if this will happen, do I believe that US citizens will actually manage to reclaim their country? I would love to say yes, but I don't know, man. This corrupt bureaucratic class in US, deep state, this corrupt system, and all the forces that are pulling the strings from military-industrial complex or other multinational corporations, neocons and so on, they are just too powerful, man. And how US citizens gonna pull off a actual revolution and reclaim their own country? How they gonna do it, man? I don't know. And dear friends, let me also react on this question, and that's about it for today. Levan, do you know what happened to Russian news PPL that had been arrested and beaten several weeks ago? Levan, do you know what happened to the Russian news? What is PPL that has been arrested and beaten several weeks ago? Where did it happen, and what is their PPL? Sorry, Smoky Sally, but I just I don't understand her. My English is not that good to understand straight away. This short abbreviature, how should I say abbreviature? I don't know what PPL is. Sorry. Maybe tomorrow you will ask it again with the explanation of what PPL is, and I'll give you answer on that. Oh, you mean people? Maybe you mean people, Russian news people. Levan, do you know what happened to the Russian news people that had been arrested and beaten several weeks ago? You mean Russian journalists that were arrested and beaten in Azerbaijan about months ago, or longer than that, I guess, at this point? If you mean that, they still are under arrest in Azerbaijan, by the way, and they were journalists of Sputnik Azerbaijan media outlet, and head of Russia Today corporation. I guess, yes, that's how it called, Россия Сегодня media corporation. Solovyov is one of the leading figures there, if I'm remembering correctly. Just a couple of days ago, he once again called Azerbaijani leadership to release these journalists, but Baku is reluctant to take any steps towards actual de-escalation with Russia. So, I mean, if you mean that situation, then those journalists still are. Those people were journalists, by the way. Azerbaijan side also claimed that they arrested several Russian nationals, and they accused them in all sorts of crazy allegations, false allegations. Those people are still also in prison. Azerbaijan did not release none of them, not journalists and no other civilians that were arrested and beaten badly by Azerbaijani so-called police and security services. So unfortunately, they still are in prison there. And Chris Cleland is commenting or asking, why not retaliate before you get hit? Well, this is a big question, isn't it? Many people, not just in the West, but also here in Russia, probably are asking why we are not taking preemptive strike. If risk of next phase of escalation is not just high, but it's just inevitable, then why would not we strike first? And it's a good question. I don't really have an answer on that. Every country has a right for preemptive strikes if there is factual evidences that attack on this country is inevitable, right? But I don't know. Maybe Russian leadership is still in hope that they will manage to resolve this confrontation that West provoked against us through political means. Maybe they still are hopeful that political means will work. I don't know. I just don't know. But question is definitely legit, by the way. If I was the Russian president, for example, that I can say that much, that if I was Russian president and I had information from intelligence services that next phase of escalation against Russia on unprecedented level from the West is absolutely inevitable, I would authorize preemptive strikes. I would authorize preemptive strikes, even if that will provoke a full-scale exchange of between NATO and Russia. I would take preemptive measures because that will increase, maybe slightly, but still that will increase chances of survival of my people, right? Because if I strike first, then enemy will have lesser resources to strike back, right? That would be my calculus. Although during the first strike, I would not use nukes, by the way, that's for sure. During the first strike, I would not use nukes, not to provoke nuclear response, right? Although my nuclear forces would be on a high alert, and if even single ICBM is launched from the west, then that's it. I will launch everything I have. So that's what I would do, right? But I guess, thanks God, not am I president of Russia, because there was a once, by the way, Georgian Ossetian that was leading. That was number one in Moscow, leading Soviet Union. Name of that Georgian Ossetian is Joseph Stalin, right? Joseph Jurashvili, Koba, right? Stalin, by the way, and yeah, he did make history, by the way, right? He was not messing around, yeah, that's what Southerners are kind of, we are. We have different mindset that Northerners. This is true everywhere, by the way. I guess in Europe, southern people in southern France or southern Italy have a bit different mindset than northern Italy or northern France, and definitely they have a different mindset than northern Europeans, right? Southerners are more emotional, more reactive, right? Northerners are more calm, and I guess that is not a bad feature to have, by the way, to be calm and not to do stuff based on either emotions or excessive aggression, right? So therefore, yeah, thanks God, not me, Russian president, and not someone like me. We should all be grateful, by the way, to Russian president Vladimir Putin. You might like him or not, but we should all be grateful for him that he is still exercising restraint. While if someone else, by the way, was in charge here in Russia, if someone else was a Russian president, then this world could be in a very different place right now. After so many provocations of the NATO and NATO member states. Am I correct, dear friends, on that? And well, I will end, dear friends, this stream on that term. Thank you all. Thank you all for your time, dear friends, for your attention. And I wish you a wonderful day. Later on today, dear friends, I will have a second news update, most likely Walk and Talk type. And so see you then. And dear friends, if you want to support my work, all the links are on this video description box and in the pinned comment. Have a wonderful day and take care. Bye.